then first thing that we have to do is to give up our romanticism. We are very romantic people at one level, and we are very lethargic at another level. We need to give up on both these things. We are, that word in Sanskrit, alpa santoshi. We achieve something a little bit. Of course, any achievement has to be celebrated, but you should always correlate with what is happening outside in the world. So in that, I said in the very first chapter on India that give up this romanticism and lethargy. And while we have achieved so much in the last 10 years, 20 years, there is much more ground to be covered.
The session that is really of extreme significance, and we're going to be speaking to somebody who's had a masterful survey, not just of the 21st century, but of what went before. Ram Madhav is a RSS ideologue. He's been the bridge between the BJP and the RSS. He's held many, many nodal positions in India's public life. But the reason we have him here today is that he's done a new book called The 21st Century, The New World Order and India's Place in It. The book actually is very interesting because it dissects the forces that created the 20th century. It dissects all the factors building up into dismantling the what was the certitudes of the 20th century. And then he looks at what is the role that India can play. Are we going to subscribe again to an order that is entirely dominated by Western values and by Western civilizational vision? Or does India have something to offer? And are there things that India needs to really sit up about and think very, very deeply on? To listen to that very wide breadth of issues, extremely germane to us, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Ram Madhav. The camera on you. Oh. Ram, thank you very much for coming here. As I said, this is a platform where we really try to bring diverse perspectives, so it's a particular pleasure to have you. As I said, your book is very fascinating because it's really like a, in college we used to say a kunji. It's like a good kunji on the 20th and 21st century. And you've really tracked all that went into the building of the 20th century world order. I won't go that much into it because that's something that the audience would know. But you define American exceptionalism and the Cold War, all the big pieces, the creation of the WTO, the UN, the NATO, the structures that kept the world in place. But more fascinatingly, you've sort of really listed the factors that is pulling this apart. So to begin with, will you start with the listicle? What are the 8 or 10 factors you think that are most important that's completely changing the world order?
Shoma, at the outset, let me thank you for inviting me to this event and hosting me here. Lots of your fans here must be wondering how come Shoma has Ram Madhav here.
That's exactly the polarity I want to break.
And many on the other side must be surprising what is Ram Madhav doing here. That is also a fact of our unfortunate life. But I always enjoy interacting with people who are ready to think. Thought is at a premium today. Everybody is busy. Nobody wants to really spend on thought, thinking, and all that. You created this platform. I really congratulate you for this initiative. Now, coming to the book that I recently I authored, and it was launched by Vice President of India 2 weeks ago. It's called The New World. What I tried to do in that book was to give shape to something many people are nowadays talking about. If you follow the political discourse, not just in our country, but globally, many people talk about a new world emerging, new world order coming, old order dying, etc., etc. There is a broad consensus, especially ever since you have seen President Trump's way of running his country. Now, more and more people now are convinced that the old order is dead and a new world is taking shape. Well, many
Or not
say,
taking shape.
no, it's a very interesting thing. So, what is that new world going to be? How do you define it? That is what I tried to do in this book. I identified 10 very important characteristics of this new world. When I tell those 10 things today, some of them may sound like, very exaggerated. The reason is we are at a transition phase today. We're transitioning from the old order into a new one. Because we are in this transition, things look very chaotic. For example, one of my friends said, we had what we called as international liberal order for almost 6 to 7 decades now. What we have is neither international, countries are turning more nationalistic. Not just talking about our own country, many of you may say that India is a very nationalistic country, but many in the world, including America, what is MAGA, if not nationalism, if not, turning inwards? So countries are turning nationalistic, so internationalism is no longer there. Anything but liberal you see, anywhere, Europe, elsewhere, it is more towards conservative ideas, more towards religion, more towards family. It's all transforming. And of course, the last word, order, doesn't exist. We are in the phase of a disorder. So neither international, nor liberal, nor order. But this is just a transition. Remember, in front of our own eyes, when I say in front of the eyes of each one of us, you may be 75. Very, very interesting age level we discuss nowadays. Even if you are 75, you will see it in front of your eyes that a new world will be taking shape. Those 10 points
I thought
highlight.
for a moment you're saying everyone here is 75.
No, few of them.
Okay.
So there are 10 things I highlighted, and I suggested 10 ways, new ways, by which India has to try and participate in this new world.
So I wanted you to pick out of those 10. Again, I'll share with you that it's very interesting that Ram has divided these factors that are kind of pulling apart the old global order into things which are geopolitical, diplomatic, militaristic, technological, and then there's cultural. So let's start with the two very important phenomenon. One is and this is a debated fact, is America really in decline? And is China really on the rise? And what are the factors which show you that you feel that America is in decline? What are the very key factors that you think show that?
Generally, as the author, I would be very happy to talk a lot about my book, but my publisher will be unhappy if I say everything. I expect you to, but
you've come here as an ideas man. Don't become a marketing.
Just to lighten the situation. But my first 2 chapters are devoted to these 2 items. First chapter is about the very perceptible decline of the Western influence. When I say decline, I'm not saying that US or Europe will disappear. They will be there. They will be important powers. But the kind of influence or power that those Western powers, especially the USA, enjoyed in the outgoing world order will not be there in the new world order for 2-3 reasons, which I dealt with in the next 2-3 chapters. One important reason is the rise of China. Now, this is not a secret or not something that I am stating for the first time. The whole world knows that China is a very strong power today. When I say power, it's not just an economic power. It is, of course, a very strong economic power. It became the world's second largest economy in 2008. For the last 17, 18 years, it is reigning as the second largest economy. But story is not about economy. Countries may have a lot of money, but the 21st century is all about technology. Where 20th century was trade and capital, 21st century is capital and technology. You also have to be masters in the deep tech areas, frontier technology, some of which you talked about in your the 2-minute video. There, China's strides are gigantic. They are very, very advanced. You talked about, passingly you talked about AGI, artificial general intelligence. Now, how do these two things go together? Nobody understands. It is an oxymoron. You are saying artificial, you are saying general intelligence. It's actually a very advanced stage of intelligence. Do you know that China and the USA are racing ahead to reach that AGI level, and the gap between them is maybe, I would say, 6 weeks or 8 weeks? That is the way China is progressing. So these two developments will be predominant developments, but that does not mean we are entering into any bipolar situation again, which we witnessed in the last world order with the Soviet Union on one side and the Western powers on the other side. It's not going to be bipolar. It's going to be multipolar. That is one chapter I dedicated to. But beyond multipolar, I threw up an idea that it's not even multipolar, it's going to be heteropolar.
So, Ram, you've kind of accelerated me into what I would have said would be the second part of our conversation. I just want to share with the audience some very stark facts which are really there in Ram's book. And no matter how much we talk in 45 minutes, it won't cover your book, Ram, so don't hold back. But, you know, it's fascinating that in 2000, China had a per capita GDP of $2,000 per head. And it's now, in 2024, 26,300. It's grown 92 times the size of America since it was brought into the WTO. When it was brought into the WTO, America was 22 times the size of China's economy. Now it's just 1.3 times the size of China's economy. That's the kind of growth that it's had. Now, as you said, Ram, technology is really going to be driving this change. China is way ahead. It's got DeepSeek. It's just have this hypersonic, sort of missile that it went around the world and hit a target without America even knowing about it. So it's way ahead. India invests $15 billion in R&D. China and America are investing $670 billion, you know. So in this scenario, in this new growing order, what is it that you think India really has to offer? I'm going to come to that heteroglobal because we're going to start arguing on that a lot. So I'm just trying to cover the calm ground first. What do you think India can really offer in this new growing, the world order that's not yet formed?
So, as I said, this new order will be dominated by different types of forces. One is, of course, multiple powers. You know, just to recall, when we had that 4-day conflict with Pakistan 2 months ago, we all naturally said that Pakistan gets support from China. That we always say, we always know. But do you know that we started talking about another country this time, Turkey? Turkey has emerged as a power. We may not like it. We have issues with that country. But it's a power today. So the world is no longer dominated by any one or two powers. There are multiple middle powers. Russia is there. Turkey is there. ASEAN itself is a power today. They are actually considering many things to the extent that they are thinking of having a separate legal order for the Indian Ocean region. Going to that extent. So there are a number of polls that are rising, but the biggest...
But Ram, that is not answering the question I asked, which is that what is the contribution that you've clearly positioned that we have to build brand Bharat, and that Bharat has something to offer the 21st century, which is different from the Western order of the 20th century. What is that core idea that India can offer? So
I again go back to that only, because to link it to what India should do, first of all, India has to understand where the world is going. The heteropolar forces, the technology, the other elements of the world will be very big players in this new order. So that brings to the question of India. If India is serious about playing a role in this, which of course I consider the current leadership is, then first thing that we have to do is to give up our romanticism. We are very romantic people at one level, and we are very lethargic at another level. We need to give up on both these things. We are, that word in Sanskrit, alpa santoshi. We achieve something a little bit. Of course, any achievement has to be celebrated, but you should always correlate with what is happening outside in the world. So in that, I said in the very first chapter on India that give up this romanticism and lethargy, and while we have achieved so much in the last 10 years, 20 years, there is much more ground to be covered. Just to give you one example, since you mentioned about it, technology is the key to any nation's rise today. If you want to be respected in the world, technologically you have to be advanced. For technology, key is R&D and innovation. In R&D and innovation, our whole country and the whole nation spending, government and probably there are corporates here, all of us together spend 0.75% of our GDP. Whereas China spends 6.5% of its GDP. US spends more than 4% of its GDP. Remember, these numbers 6.5, 4, and 0.74 may not look very big difference, but of their GDP, remember. If it is 6.5% of China's GDP against 0.7% of India's GDP, means China is spending 25 times more than India on R&D. That is why we need to really heavily invest in areas where the real technological strength exists.
So Ram, do you think that, there are several questions here, but first one, just on this. The first idea was that the entire 20th century was created by Western ideas of nationalism, of domination, of technology, etc. You are saying that India should catch up on this. But like you said earlier, we've also become very nationalistic. Our positing of our civilizational values is done through, a lot of show and sloganeering. It's about a kind of religious identity, rather than marrying civilizational values and modernity. So do you think right now we've really tuned into the needs of the 21st century, or do you think, it so happens that the BJP government is in power right now? I'm just saying it as a government, that is the government really tuned into the requirements of the 21st century?
I think that this one government understands the real need for investing in these areas very much. Look, every country will have its challenges. Are you trying to tell me that China did not have any challenge in the last 50 years when it continued to rise? It had much deeper challenges than what you are talking about. Every country will have challenges. Don't you think US has challenges today? You go to any government office in US and ask them.
But let's not analyze them.
Why do you always try to demean our country by referring to local issues? Issues are there which we don't, some of those issues we don't like, and some of those issues we don't agree, Shoma. What you are saying may not be agreeable to me. But the point is, as a nation, are we focusing on the larger issue? I would say, yes, this government is focusing on that. That is why this government has today allocated 1 lakh crore, 100,000 crores for R&D, another 100,000 crores for private industry to come forward and invest in R&D so that you create jobs and government will supplement. It has earmarked 6,000 crores for quantum studies, quantum research. 6,000 crores quantum allocation happened. We could spend not much because nobody is coming forward. It is here that India's corporates, India's companies have to come forward. India's pharmaceuticals, India's automobile industry. Today India is doing well in automobiles. You showcased one foreign company. It's a very renowned company. But Indian companies are also doing well. Your Mahindra, your Tata, they are doing well. But all the electronics in that car, for that, they depend on other countries.
So, again, Ram, I just want to clarify, because I've worked very hard at not using words which kind of already fix people in particular positions. So there is no question of me demeaning India, because I adore India. There's no way I would demean it. So when we want to kind of arrive at clarity in each other's positions, I would really request that we don't, in fact, use words which preconceive what we are trying to do, so just that. I was really trying to ask you that what are those core ideas that India can contribute to the 21st century? Because you end the book with saying it should not be that we again concede all the drivers of the new world to the West. India has something to offer. So I'm trying to articulate for the audience, what is it that India has to offer? So I'm going to come back to that. Let's get to something more specific. You use the word heteroglobal, heteropolar. In that is the big cultural issue that actually is across the world has become a live wire thing. You particularly talk about wokeism, versus conservatism. It is definitely tearing America apart. And you've spoken of that America is very militarily powerful, it's technologically powerful, it's economically powerful, but its foreign policy and its own cultural wars within the country is tearing it. It has no longer got any moral credibility, But when you write about this, you say that the world is not just multipolar, it's heteropolar. It involves non-state actors, terrorists, NGOs, all in the same breath. Big multinational companies like Google and now NVIDIA's a $4 trillion economy. So this ecosystem of heteropolar players, you speak of terror, technology companies, NGOs, and wokeism all in the same breath. So that's what I would really like to talk to you about.
No, simple. Because I am writing only one book, I have to mention all of them. Right. Come on. That is how, if that is the level at which we have to debate this session,
no.
I don't mind. But what I tried to say was, I didn't even say whether I didn't give any value judgment on any of these things. I said these are the forces. Why I said was, you called Taliban, you means at least I myself wrote so much about Taliban, calling them as terrorists. But today, Taliban is the rulers of Afghanistan. We are dealing with them. We said ISIS, Al-Nuqsa, is a terrorist organization. Today, they are ruling over Syria. We deal with them. So we are entering into a world where the earlier identities, our earlier understanding, that's why I said we have to get out of that romanticism. Fixed notions. You are entering into a different type of world where probably whom you call something today, maybe the same person you have to deal with. That is the kind of heteropolarity I talked about. I gave innumerable examples. I was in Hungary just 3-4 weeks ago in a conference. Prime Minister of that country was speaking. And the very first sentence he said was that my country faces a serious threat. I thought he would be talking about Russia or maybe US or some other country. He said, my country faces serious threat from George Soros. Now, who is George Soros? Does he have an army? Does he have a country? No, he is an investor. You have investors supporting you. How can an investor be a threat to a country? But don't look at countries from India's prism. India is a big country. When I say that NGOs are a threat, you may laugh. How can NGOs be a threat? You may laugh, but think about smaller countries. How they today look at this scenario. That's what I tried to say. It's not about any value judgment, not about equating, so corporates are equal to terrorists. It's not like that. That is very...
No, that's not the point. The point was that, you were saying that these are all players. How should India respond to these players was what I was saying. That, when you speak about conservatism and wokeism, it's true, like I said, in America, the liberal qualities have been taken to a level where there's a big backlash, but there's also a conservative, community there that is taking down all the kind of rights and equalities that people have fought for, whether it's over women, over their own bodies, etc. So coming to the Indian context, I wanted to ask you again that, you say the conservatives represented rationalist and progressive values. Wokeism has gone to a level which is irrational, cancel culture, name-calling, and makes people uncomfortable. So, and then you say that India needs a very, sophisticated articulation of its unique cultural cradle. So that's what I was asking you. If today there are different cultural values, what do you think is the way India should articulate itself? In this war between conservatives and woke values, what do you think is the good middle path, which is a good Indian way of doing it?
Look, what happened in the West now was under this wide canopy of wokeism, even the classical liberal values have been utterly compromised today. For example, the first official order, one of the first official orders that President Biden signed in 2021 was to allow men to use women's toilets. Now, the question is, what will happen to women's rights, which liberals championed?
Just to be accurate, transgenders, not men per se, but transgenders.
Yeah, so transgenders, what is transgender? A man calling himself as a woman or a woman calling herself as a man. Including LGBTQ, this is one segment, right? There are lesbians, there are gays, there are queer people, but there are people who can identify their gender at a later stage. All this comes under the transgender banner. No, I can tell you today in Europe, in certain schools, parents cannot identify the gender of the child. Child will decide after when he or she turns 14, that child will decide what gender it wants to adopt, whether man or woman. No, so that usage, now my simple point is, how do you protect women's rights then? Women had a right for privacy. So those areas, how we dealt with those areas. Did we reject LGBTQ communities? No. In traditional Indian cultural ecosystem, we never rejected them. But at the same time, we did not allow multiple identities, including lesbian identity, gay identity, multiple identities, to disrupt the established order. That's why it is this government which did away with Section 377, which was penalizing LGBTQ relationships, CRPC ka. But it was the same government which said no to same-sex marriages. Because marriage we consider as an important institution. Whereas on the question of LGBTQ relations per se, on the transgender issues, we allowed absolute freedom. That is how India should present its case before the world.
So, I won't go into the description of what a transgender is because that's a whole other conversation, but I think there are these exact misconceptions, Ram, and we are trying to create a platform where there can be good faith dialogue about this. And it is true, and we are going to have Keshav Suri and Parmesh Shahani after this to actually discuss that if there are those who feel threatened by these new communities asking for rights, what is a way of creating a more good faith conversation? Do we even want to cross the border and ask each other what we feel, what we think? So I'm not going to get into that particular here.
Please get into it. That's why I said, we, in fact, as RSS spokesperson, I, in 2010, for the first time said, Section 377 should go, this clause of criminalization should go. Another matter, there can be any amount of debate over how do you place our LGBTQ communities in our society. Personally, as I said, we always held that every individual have multiple identities. This is one identity one will have. Individuals will decide, families may decide, society may decide how to handle those things, but everybody needs to be handled respectfully. The only question where probably we disagreed was whether we can institutionalize it under that category of marriage, because marriage comes with it, brings with it many constitutional, legal, many other kinds of implications. Are we ready? Government of India feels, some of us also feel that it will be a little premature for us to go that level. Today, 38 countries in the world have legalized same-sex marriages. We are not pointing fingers at them. There probably it is possible to do that, but there are 150 plus countries where it has not been legalized. But India's case is different, I'm saying. Here, you will not be attacked with stones. You will not be made to stand at a street corner and stones will be thrown at you. No. Here, there will be respect like any other citizen gets the respect. Certain institutions are probably those institutions need more discussion. We are open to the discussion with our LGBTQ activists. And for your information, we ourselves have a section in our India Foundation which deals with transgenders and all the different LGBTQ communities.
So Ram, again, in all fairness, I would say that, Padma Shri was given to a transgender 3 years ago. So there's all those good signals as well. But we know that deep inside rural, semi-urban, urban India is getting better on it. But there is a denial of these rights. I come back to the articulation of this, Ram, you're saying today that yes, LGBT, the entire rainbow identities should have rights, but there's discomfort over marriage or certain legal rights. Again, that's a very long conversation, but these communities feel that they should have legal rights. How to express that? It's a discussion, it's a
No, actually the discussion is happening. In fact, those who talk to us, they clearly go to the extent of agreeing, all right, if you do not want us to use that word marriage, tell us how do we legalize it? I mean, there has to be some kind of a legal structure for same-sex relationships. That is where the debate is. So, short of calling it as a marriage, because in India, after all, marriage is not just a contract. Unlike in some other societies, we consider it as a sacrament. There is some amount of sacredness attached to it. It's a kind of an institution. Keeping that particular institution intact, there can be other arrangements for such relationships. On that, there is full openness. We are ready to discuss. We are discussing, actually.
Okay, that's an interesting point, and now I'm wishing that I had Keshav and Parmesh here to talk with you, because that would have been an even more important conversation. But I'm still coming back to some articulations, Ram, and why I'm pushing this is not because I have a pre-settled view on it. I'm trying to see if we can articulate things in a more middle road way. So there is in India's public life, with the government, with different sort of ladders of the BJP or the RSS, now increasingly not with the RSS leader himself, he's been making some very profound statements, but there is a outlawing of anyone who's liberal, anyone who has left values, Do you think that that is core to India? You've spoken of a spiritual democracy. Do you think we are not able to speak to each other without imprisoning you as a fascist and liberals as anti-nationals? Do you think that has gone too far? Would you help to bring that narrative back to the center?
We two are sitting here talking in front of an audience, which half of them may not subscribe to my thought process. We're talking. Where is it happening? I mean, that's why I say, in any society, there will be different kinds of forces. They keep building their own narrative. You build your narrative, they build their narrative, I build my narrative. Now, if you expect that nobody should say anything, that's not democracy then, I would say. Let those people have their opinion about somebody who is saying something. Let them. You have, sir, decades on, we were called communalists, fascists, etc., etc. Did we say that those who called us fascists, all of them should be in jail? No, you are holding an interview with me. You called us fascists, so I know that. So
Ram,
listen. When somebody thinks that these people are doing this, so I call them anti-national, respond to him. Just as you called him communal, you called him fascist. Today he is turning back and calling at you with some name, although. That should not be the public discourse, I agree. But why are you awakened today about that? When you were continuously doing all sorts of campaigns about all others, that time you never remembered whether it was a civil way of dealing with organizations or not. So, I'm saying today there is no issue about free discussion. I'm saying I'm sitting in front of you. I know that this audience does not completely support me.
No,
but
it's not a homogeneous audience.
That is how it should be. That is how it should be, I'm saying. There I should come. They also should listen to me. They also should question me. That freedom is there. That's why your initiative is thriving. I know that. You are doing so well.
That makes me scared now, Ram. I'm not doing that well at all. But no.
Look at the video. We saw that video. How nicely you have conducted that program. In fact, those are the important issues we should discuss instead of coming to those minor issues, I feel.
But Ram, why I brought it? Because, you, even in the, so I'm going to come back. Like I said, there were two parts to this. There's the geopolitical, the military, the foreign policy, and then there is the cultural issues. I'm not in just a joke, Ram. I genuinely think this to be a very important issue, that yes, the cancel culture of the left liberal has gone too far, the easy name calling. And I want to put on record, Ram, that yes, one has done journalism that challenges the BJP or others' perspectives, including the Congress. But all my journalism, we have never called anybody a name. So similarly, and I've never actually called anyone a fascist. I may call out certain actions you've taken. But what I want to say is, do you think we could agree today over here that the cancel culture should stop. There should be real discussion with conservatives. And equally, when you said, people should not be jailed for their views, when you're articulating this new idea of India in the 21st century, do you think it's gone too far, jailing people for dissent or for... Would you concede that as something we need to fix now?
Yes, because we ourselves were jailed for our views several times.
But do you want to repeat that? Do you want to repeat that fault?
No, definitely. That's why I'm saying we never want that kind of a thing, that anybody expressing a different viewpoint should be jailed. No, that should not be the way. But if you generalize it, that in the country of 1.4 billion people, every dissenter is being jailed, I disagree with you. I know dedicated channels, I know dedicated websites, constantly 24/7 churning out ideas that are antithetical to the rulers of the day. They are doing it freely. Who is stopping them? When there are certain cases here and there where certain legal actions are taken, you have to have faith in the judiciary. That is how democracies function. I mean, when we suffered such kind of actions against us, we took...
So Ram, absolutely, going back to the emergency, there can be no...
Not just emergency, many incidents
subsequently as well. My core point is always that, when you position yourself as a more enlightened leader, do you want to repeat the mistakes of the past, or do you want to shift the boundaries to how our public life should be?
I already said, the very fact that we are all talking so freely here is a clear indication that there is enough space for all the different viewpoints in our country. Nobody is gagging anybody's voice. We are all free. I told you, we have dedicated websites. Fair enough. Let them continue their campaign or their views.
Okay, so again, Ram, like I said, I have invited you here, and I don't actually want to be reduced to the minutiae by minutiae cases. But the reason it was so interesting to have you here is because there are very interesting ideas in the book. These are the problematic fault lines in our country. I'll think of one as recent as, say, Ali Mahmoobabadi, who's a professor in Ashoka University, writes an innocuous Facebook, which is only saying it's fantastic to have 2 women officers, one a Muslim, communicating on Operation Sindoor. But there's bulldozing, there's lynchings, etc., and that this should penetrate deeper into society. It is not incendiary, it's not anti-national, it's someone just saying, let's deepen this good gesture, percolate into society. So when he's arrested, you don't need to arrest 200 million people, you need to arrest 3 people, and the message goes into society. So all I'm asking is that there is a positive agenda that the government is doing, and many things which I feel are very good. Could we reach a stage now where we stop doing things which are reductive? We don't need to arrest people because India is much larger than all this. Would you concede that today?
Every such matter has both sides. Whether one should be arrested or not, there can be views. Maybe one can say that he could have dealt with that matter. If there is a legal issue involved, you could have dealt with that matter without arresting him. There can be a view. But given state government took certain measures and certain legal process followed, after a week or so, Mahmoodabad came out. It's a legal process that was followed. I absolutely have no issues with people having different opinion about it. People saying that it was wrong. Okay, people can have their own views. But the very fact that within a week he could get some justice and he came out, and today he's fighting his case in the courts and all. Why I'm trying to say this is because it happened in Delhi and around Delhi, it gets highlighted. It's wrong. I mean, if some people feel, yes, it's wrong, let it be discussed. But day in and day out, we face the same situation in states like Kerala. I mean, it happened.
I agree.
A state led by Communist Party, a Marxist Party, it had its way about dealing with our cadres there. We also faced this situation. We went to the court. We fought against them. The way is to democratically fight back. Even today, we are unable to defeat them. They're still coming back to power. We are facing the brunt of their rule there.
I want to bring this conversation back to that elevated level of ideas, Ram. The reason we are talking about all this is because you're saying there's a vacuum in the world now where a new articulation of nationhood, of culture, of foreign policy, of technology with the soul, there's a vacuum, there's a global vacuum. The old order is dying. What is the new order that India wants to articulate? That is what I was pushing you for. All these things are factors of that. How do you express conflict? The Indian way of expressing conflict, the Indian way of a central government having a nationalist agenda but not penalizing those. What is happening in Kerala, what's happening in Bengal, all those governments are arresting people. Congress has done it. I'm not denying that. I'm saying, what is the higher articulation when you say you're the keepers of spiritual democracy?
Look,
So,
that's precisely the problem. I'm saying countries with this kind of very diverse and very difficult history will continue to have some challenges. I'm not denying. I'm not supporting anything that is seen as not in tune with India's cultural and civilizational ethos. That is accepted. But at least some of us have to rise above and look at the big picture, what's happening in the world. These issues have to be tackled. Let us tackle them. But every time you start there and come back here, start at the big picture, that's only excuse. Big picture is excuse. That's why I said we are lazy and romantic. We don't want to really get into that big picture. We just want to talk half an hour about one arrest or half an hour about one issue.
No.
I'm not saying if that is the issue, you put that as the issue. Why should we discuss about new world here?
Ram, now, in all fairness, I've asked you 4 or 5 times
No, I'm saying,
to articulate the big picture for India.
No, but you again say, no, that big picture is okay. What about Mohammadabad arrest? You want to come back to there. Then make that the subject. Whether democracy is in danger or anything, make that subject. I can discuss with you. Point here is, the big picture there, India has to, of course, it has to refurbish its democratic credentials, not because of what is happening today. Historically, a country of this size, and when we decided that every person with 25 years of age will have the voting right. That means you have to create a very highly enlightened society. Only enlightened people can really uphold what we all want as a very mature democracy. We have to build a very mature democracy in this country. But that is not just about blame game. You are destroying it or I am destroying it. Can we all together try to build a more mature democracy? Democracy of Indian sense, not the majoritarian democracy, what we have seen in all these 70 years all over the world. Democracy where, what Gandhi used to say, the weakest shall have as much power as the strongest. Can that kind of a democracy be built in India first? We have to do that before we do anything before the world. Those are the kind of values. You know, without taking much time, let's just give you one example. Why we are becoming lethargic and not looking at ourselves? Always, self-pity, self-criticism. We continuously complete our entire life in this. World Economic Forum. Today, the new guru for economists, World Economic Forum came out with a new concept called stakeholder capitalism. What is stakeholder capitalism? Now they are saying, generally, any company follows what is called shareholder capitalism, meaning you want to benefit your shareholder at the end of the day. World Economic Forum is saying now in this new era, new age, not just your shareholder, but all those stakeholders, meaning the entire society should be in your vision. You should think about them before you take any decision about your company or anything. This is what they call as stakeholder capitalism, new mantra. Now everybody will start talking about it. This paper came out just a few months ago. Now, Gandhi talked about it 70 years ago. He said, Dharma Kartrutva, trusteeship. We never bothered to articulate it. We never bothered to discuss more about it. We never tried to make it an economic idea. But when the World Economic Forum gives it in a different language, we are adopting it. So I tried to say that these are areas in which a lot of our wisdom can come to use in this new era, new age. I'm completely with you on the issues that you discussed. We have to overcome them. In fact, I don't know if you have fully read it. I said 4 things India has to achieve before it actually can aspire to become a player. First thing is national unity. Without that, you do anything, you can never be a real player in the world. National unity involves all those issues he raised. Then I said national prosperity. Then I said national security. The fourth is national dignity. You are in Gurgaon. How many of us follow traffic lanes? Gurgaon, most educated. How many of us can refrain from honking? I was coming behind me. The guy was honking. He was actually coming into this. I don't know if he's here. So everybody is in a hurry. So how do you create a dignified Bharat? I'm saying these are challenges which we have to overcome. But we have so much to offer as a wisdom. But again, only difference between us and China will be when we want to play an active role in the world. When we say that we offer something to the world, we are not saying my way or highway. You have to follow my principles, otherwise go to dogs. This is not our formula. We say, I contribute myself, but you contribute your wisdom also. Let China contribute it. Let US contribute it. US has given us so many great ideas. Western civilization has given us so many ideas. The idea of human rights, the idea of LGBTQ rights, the ideas of certain freedoms and all were given to us by Western world. We take them. But we also have so many good things to offer because this new world needs ideas from many different sources. That is what I tried to highlight when I said brand Bharat. That is what I meant by brand Bharat. I think that is where it should end. Other issues can be discussed on a different platform.
Yes. So Ram, I've repeatedly actually been saying that I'm very inspired by the idea because really the West has had a very, it's anti-nature in many ways. It's really exploited nature. It has dominated. Its foreign policy has been hypocritical. So when you were saying Bharat, brand Bharat, I actually was asking you for an inspired articulation, like a big picture articulation of what is it that we can contribute to the 21st century? What is the new way we can embrace technology? So in this, again, I'm coming back to, you have some very interesting ideas at a geopolitical level. Ram was suggesting this was a real blind spot, that India should look at itself as a blue power, because we have 7,500 kilometers of coastline. We are so focused on the land and continental idea of India that we are not looking at maritime India, though 90% of our imports and our oil is through maritime routes, So that's a very big idea you had. You've also talked about the shatter belt, that our entire neighborhood is a volatile zone, and we are so focused on America and Israel and China and Russia that we are not looking at our neighborhood. So these are some really big ideas at a geopolitical level, technology, these things. I come back to the civilizational idea because that's at the heart of your book, where you said that China became where it's reached because it married Marxism with Confucianism, the soul as well as the geopolitical idea. So in India, you said that there's the idea of chitti and viratness. Can you articulate that in an inspired way? And I'm again asking you for a big picture.
Yes. So nations are also living entities in the sense that, especially nations that have thousands of years of existence, that includes China, that includes India, that includes some of the other civilizations. These come with a very strong civilizational history and civilizational memory. That history and that memory makes what they are today. A Chinese citizen thinks very differently. An Indian thinks very differently. Chinese have built Great Wall. It took, their books say that it took 1600 years to build that wall, 3,900 kilometers long wall. Why was it built? Just to prevent the southern parts of China from the invading Manchus and Mongols. India has been constantly invaded through one mountain pass called the Khyber Pass. Did it occur to any Indian king that all that I have to do is to build a wall across Khyber? Why didn't it occur? Because it doesn't sit in your psyche. You believe that whole world is a family. Civilizations are shaped, nations are shaped by civilizational values. We have great civilizational values, whether it is about our version of democratic functioning of a state, what kind of democratic states we need. From there to how do you look at your religions, not religion. West looks at religion, we look at religions because we believe in pluralism. The pluralistic idea we have to offer to the world. We have to offer to the world the concept of family. I'm a strong believer in that institution. And that institution has been developed so thoroughly in our country, in our civilization. We should offer this as an important contribution to the world. The ideas that our ancient scriptures contained with respect to, for example, this whole debate about human rights. Do you know that when the first debate happened in 1946-47, letters were sent to 50 world leaders, asking them to recommend what rights should be incorporated in the International World Charter of Human Rights. One letter came to Jawaharlal Nehru. Nehru replied that I am too busy, I don't have time for all this because we are a newly independent nation, I have to focus on my nation building. I don't have time for all this human rights and all that. But I have one fellow in my country who has a lot of time. I will send your letter to him, and he sends that letter to Gandhi. Gandhi was also equally busy. Gandhi was attending to partition victims in Calcutta and in Bihar and all that. But sitting in a train, he writes a reply. Do you know what he writes? He says, that letter is available on the internet. You can just Google it and get it. My mother always told me that as a person, you don't have any rights. Now, this is a very scandalous statement to make, that you don't have rights. But Gandhi says, my mother used to say that you have certain duties. If you perform your duties, all the rights of all others are protected. If you don't perform your duties, although you give rights to all others, their rights are not protected. Such a beautiful idea, you see it. So one has to also, so our proposition, finally what we told the Human Rights Commission when it was being formed, was that don't only talk about rights, also talk about duties. So keep it right-duty discourse. Of course, they did not incorporate, they only highlighted the rights. By the way, don't take it as a criticism. Even in our constitution, in spite of all this debate happening in Constituent Assembly, we did not incorporate duties in the constitution initially. Duties part came through 42nd Amendment in 1976. Article 51 talks about 10 fundamental duties. But remember, you are all right-conscious people. All the rights that accrue to citizens from Article 14 to Article 36 in Indian Constitution are strictly to be implemented. If they are not implemented, then one can be punished, penalized. Whereas duties, fundamental duties under Article 51 are non-enforceable. If you don't follow it, nobody is going to punish you. We are still. So these ideas are our ideas. We have to offer these ideas to countries. So that's what I'm saying. That is the chiti of this country, the soul, inner soul of this country that represents certain values. Those values can be offered on the table whenever we play that role. We offered yoga. We gave yoga. Chinese brought their Chinese medicine to the world. I mean, each country offers its own values, its own important contributions to the world. We have much more to do.
So just absolute last, you said that India still has to articulate this, some of what you're doing right now, but you said over the last 70 years, it's not entirely articulated a distinctive vision of its national character, But you also say, like you're saying now about Gandhi, that we have a very distinct idea of nationalism, which is unity in diversity. And that also, it's the RSS position, and maybe I would agree with it, that civilizationally, in the encounter between Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Islam in its own way, that there's been this constant evolving, that plurality is at the very heart of who we think we are. So you said that Gandhi actually has already spoken of unity in diversity. Do you not think that that is something that will sustain the 21st century?
Of course. When I said pluralism means respect for all the diversity. But remember, we are very fond of emphasizing on that aspect. But you must remember that there is also emphasis on innate unity within this diversity. Do we also agree that there is one innate unity within this diversity? What is that unity you are talking about? You always emphasize that there are Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Jains, Sikhs, and all that. Fair enough. Every identity has to be respected. That is pluralism. But what makes all of us one? That oneness also needs to be emphasized. That is our effort. Maybe sometimes we are misunderstood. Sometimes we misarticulated it. I don't deny that. It may have happened. But our commitment is as much to pluralism as to oneness. Many want to emphasize on pluralism alone, but forget about the need for that innate unity, we need to take both of them together, just as you take rights and duties together.
Thank you very much, Ram. I do want to share with the audience that this is not the first time Ram and I are talking. We had a very long, interesting discussion a while back during COVID, I think, where we even spoke of this. And there are many interesting ideas that the BJP, the RSS, etc., are putting forward. But we argued over this word because even then he said India is a spiritual democracy. We absolutely are committed to plurality. And then this idea of the unity came up, and you remember we spoke of it. We said it's almost mischievous to keep articulating it as a Hindu identity or Hindu unity because it gets people's backs up, when actually you mean it as a cultural, geographical, national identity, which could be called Indian, it could be called Bharat, it could be called... Hindu is actually a geographical, cultural identity, not the religious identity. But it is used like that in a way which confuses our society and creates cultural fault lines.
No, fair enough. RSS called itself Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Why did we not call ourselves Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh? Because we know that Rashtriya is a broader way. Rashtriya is national. Nearest English word is national. Broader idea that we are all one national society, irrespective of our many differences. And these differences we respect, by the way. We do not want to obliterate any separate identity. All these identities must exist here, but by respecting that unified identity of all of us. So we always believe that, yes, that should be the way forward. In that sense, yeah, you are right. One need not always agree with when I say that it is Hindu Rashtra. Maybe you have some problem with that word. Accept it is Bharat Varsha. Accept it is India. But are you accepting that spirit? When I say India, I'm not just talking about what is India from 1947 onwards, but I'm talking about a country which has 5,000 years or more of history. Are you agreeing with that idea? That is critical. Once we agree with that idea of your past, which has good things, which has bad things, I don't have any hesitation to say, if you are living for so many thousands of years, you will have certain very proud things, but also you will have certain things that have to be discarded. Be ready for discarding it. But while discarding and accepting everything, do you still feel that you are a part of it? Or you feel that, no, my identity with this country is only starts in 1947. If you think that way, at least people like us have a problem.
Sure, that's a fair articulation. We'll have to stop here, Ram, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ram makes a very strong idea that India...
We have been arguing for many years. So sometimes we argue, now that she is not in visual medium, TV medium, otherwise this would have enhanced her TRP so much. if we quarrel, if I argue with her, she argues with me, the TRP goes up. We had that old bad habits. Bad habits should change, but we continue.
But I would put to the audience that I think this was not a quarrel at all. It is trying to arrive at a clarity of each other's points of view. And I'm publicly saying that I am very happy to really interrogate other people's ideas, concede what's right in it, and I hope get that same good faith. I don't think there are divides. We're all trying to arrive at a new articulation of who we want to be, So I hope this didn't come across as a quarrel. It wasn't intended as one. Thank you very much, Ram. There are very important ideas there. I think the starkest figures of what, not that we want to imitate China, but the stark figures of where India really is, economically, technologically, in terms of foreign policy, militarily. It's not to do India down, but it is to wake us up, that there is a new opportunity, there's a 21st century waiting to be articulated with our civilizational values, but very much an awareness that we are not on that global playing field yet as we want to be. Your book is a wake-up call. It has fascinating insights. He will be signing books. We'll take a short break, and we'll come back for the next two sessions. Thank you very much, Ram. Thank you.